Hi everybody, this is the Guardian Dark Angel, and this is going to be my second attempt at making this video because the last one was just very ranty. And this one's probably going to be very ranty too, but I'm trying something new with a VTuber model that I downloaded off of Steam, and I'm hoping to get one custom made and hopefully some decent rigging done on an actual model that I want to use. Because I might do this VTuber thing. Market's oversaturated, so the likelihood that I'll be able to get into this niche market, not very high, but I can try. And I'll try to cover this topic as quickly as I can, just so it's as comprehensive as it can be, and also just makes sense. Recently, there's been a controversy with the game Starfield, and forgive me, my mouse was in the way. With Starfield. And the game has had pretty positive reviews, generally speaking, because people like Bethesda games. That's just a fact. It doesn't matter if they're a broken, messed up mess. People love Bethesda games. That's just factual. And it is less buggy and less broken than Skyrim and has new mechanics and new features. So people are like, oh my God, something new, awesome, great. And there has been a recent controversy with pronouns in the game, and there have been several people who have gotten pretty annoyed by the pronouns. But here's the thing: the majority of the people who are getting pissed off about pronouns are not actually getting pissed off about pronouns. They're getting pissed off about a concept called the grains of seep or grains of sand make a heap. Basically, in essence, what does that mean? That means that if you have a little bit of clutter, it's not all that bad. A little bit of clutter, you can get that cleaned up really easy, doesn't typically cause any problems. If it's a lot of clutter over time from that spawns from that little clutter and becomes a disaster area because of the clutter just kept little cluttering up more and more and more and more until your house became a hoarder house where you can't even walk through it, yeah, it becomes an issue. So there are prominent personalities on the internet, and three specifically that we're going to go over, two of which I have tweets for, one of which I don't. And the first one is the Act Man. The next two are Chris Raygun and some black guy, and that's his actual username. I believe that at least two of the three of these were anti SJW back in the day, anti social justice warriors, because the old school social justice movement was pretty insane. And specifically, one of the things that they wanted to get away from was the idea that Anita Sarkeesian used to push, which was that everything is sexist, everything is transphobic, everything is homophobic, everything is racist in video games and video game mediums. And the issue was that she was just factually incorrect. And the thing is, you can pretend things are those things and try to make them out to be those things, but you'd be factually incorrect. So the controversy actually stems from this photo here. As you can see, you have Heels versus Babyface. I think his name is Az or something. And he was deep into playing Starfield. Whenever he saw the pronouns bit, he was a little miffed, but he wasn't obscenely pissed off. But during the duration of the time that he was playing the game, there were more and more and more things that he began to notice. And finally, there was a scene where you are greeted by a woman, a black woman, who is like, oh, I'm the clone of a guy. And he lost his shit. And did he overreact? Maybe, probably. I don't know. I didn't really watch the stream, I just watched the clip. And it was clipped in a way that makes it seem like he was just angry about the pronouns. And so everybody thinks this is about pronouns, but it's about something a lot more broad than that that has been a slow creep into video games, and I'll explain. So I'll read these tweets. So it starts with Dan Vask, which says Western game industry with the mighty heels versus babyface. To which some black guy responds, "What a man child. We used to make fun of people like this that would freak out over the most insignificant things in games. Everything is blank. Y'all just replaced sexist with woke." And then Harry Robinson says the Starfield discourse has revealed the rift between the old anti-SJW crowd, those with actual political instincts and foresight, and those who would have happily agreed with Anita if she had just been less smug about it. And then Chris Raygun, the Starfield discourse has revealed a rift between those who live in a terminally online hellscape where 3 second long character customization option in a new video game sends them spiraling into a fit of Vietnam flashback PTSD, and those who are functional adults. I don't like Derek, which is some black guy, and Chris's take on this because it's fundamentally incorrect. Chris is incorrect because it wasn't people flying into fits of rage over pronouns in the game. Did some people fly into fits of rage? Yeah, probably. It's possible, but that wasn't how as his reaction was to the pronouns. Some black guy misrepresenting what actually happened as well. And you might be going, okay, well, what's going on? Well, let me try to fast track this because it took me a long time to explain this in my first take of this. We've had a slow push for a long time to basically make subtle changes in games that people are not going to notice. And if some people notice, other people wouldn't care. So, what am I talking about? Well, first, we used to have main characters. That's it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. You had a character you played as. There was no character customization options. You had a character, you played as that character, you went through the story. Okay, fine. Then you had character creation in games, which is cool. You know, it's fun to be able to create a character, dive into escapism, and actually do that. And you picked male or female, you customized them based on the options you were given, and then you went forward with it. Cool, fine. But then at some point, around the time of Gamergate, and a little bit after the fact, we started seeing them phase language out of games, specifically male and female. And that was one of the first big things that got pushed that didn't get noticed by a lot of people. I did. And several other people noticed as well and called it stupid. But according to Chris and Derek, they'd say something like, freak out over the most insignificant things. It's like, okay, Derek, what happens when there is a slow roll of changes that eventually leads to absolute catastrophic failure? I'm waiting. But in all seriousness, it's going to be slow changes over time that are supposedly insignificant until they implement every little thing that they want to. And what am I talking about? It gets worse. Because this pronoun thing makes no sense, even from the standpoint of trans people. Because let me explain in short form. If you are trans, or if you believe you're trans, or you are struggling with the idea that you might be trans, or whatever, being trans means you believe you're the opposite sex trapped in or you are the opposite sex of what you were born as, because you are the opposite sex trapped in your sex's body. That is the long and short of what being trans is. That is what it always has been. And if you think it is more broad in scope than that, you are fundamentally wrong. And you cannot just umbrella everything under being trans, because it is dishonest and it is arrogant. Anyways, if you think you were born as the opposite sex, why would you not want to create a character who is the opposite sex, who looks similar to you in the face, so you can live out your fantasy of being the opposite sex? Because at that point, you can just let the pronouns be how most games handle pronouns, which is they don't. Destiny, the game, lets you choose being a guy or a girl, and they don't ever refer to you as he or she. They just call you Guardian or the Guardian. There are clever linguistic channels in which you can use to not have to use pronouns of he or she. And they functionally has always been used. And you're like, well, they put they them in the game. Yes, well, they them is not uniquely specific to a person. And before I go on a tangent, I'll go into the short version of it, which is the fact that we use he and she as identifiers, not as personalities, not as identities. If I say he and I point into a crowd of women and there is one guy over there, it is pretty easy to understand who I'm talking about. It is an identifier. It is a this person is physically this. If I say she and I point to a girl, or I say the blonde girl, then and there's a blonde girl over there, people know who I'm talking about. Can I say they? Yes, I can. But if there's more than one person over there, I'm not going to go the blonde they, because that sounds stupid. But that's beside the point. This slow roll has been really annoying, and it's been people like Derek and Chris and the Actman who also commented on this controversy by saying that as is Heels versus Babyface, I think his name is As, that he's trying to infiltrate and make changes and say that, oh, games are all woke now, and they are. That's factual. We've taken biological sex out of games and we've labeled them body type A and body type B, or body type 1 and body type 2. Why? I don't know. Probably because stupid people. And then we started phasing out male leadership characters in games. Oh, the Rebel Army. He's led by. It was led by this old mustached colonel who, he is like a strong guy who always used to be at the front lines of war and whatnot. And now every single leadership role feels like it's filled by a bald black woman. Because I guess there's nothing more strong and independent than being a bald black woman. And this is no offense to bald black women, because there's one who I adore, who is Ikora Ray from Destiny 2. And she hasn't taken much of a leadership role until recently, even though she has been a leader character and one of 3 important leader characters in the game. But every time I see a new game come out, I think there was one recently that released that was like supposedly high fidelity graphics, and it was about like a mage, or you could become like a mage or something like that, with different bracelets that give you power or something. It's like for I don't remember the name of the game, but it is literally the same voice actress, and it is literally a mostly bald black woman who is in the role of the character who is played by the same person. And the more I look at these games, every time you have a supervisor or a boss or a general or a president or a tribal leader or literally anything, it's always a woman. And often always a minority woman. And normally I would have no issue with that. But when it's been a sweeping change across the entirety of the industry, I start to get annoyed because at that point you can say, yeah, there's been a very slow but consistent walk towards woke crap in games. And people like the Act Man, Chris Raygun, and some black guy have been paying so little attention, they just haven't been seeing it. So this has less to do with pronouns and more to do with the slow roll towards neo Marxism and ESG BS. And it's gotten so bad that we've gotten the ESG bros have gotten their fingers into the Japanese market and are getting them to censor games before they even come over here. They're getting them to self-censor. Meanwhile, games made in the West don't have to censor, they just do whatever they want. So we're enforcing authority over a Asian market for games. Meanwhile, the Western market is allowed to do whatever the F it wants to, and it is universally praised. And I think that that's stupid, and I think that that's unfair. So the people who think that this is just about pronouns and games fundamentally doesn't understand what exactly has been going on. They haven't been paying attention, and frankly, they are out of touch. And by the time that games have been absolutely decimated, including franchises that they care about, and have been ripped apart and replaced with bullshit, it'll be too late. And they will have won. And they'll go, well, how did this happen? Or I'm going to start complaining now that the entirety of this entire ecosystem has been destroyed, and they're going to wonder what happened. Well, the simple answer is the fact that you didn't pay attention, you didn't care, and all of the insignificant changes were made specifically so people like you wouldn't pay attention, wouldn't care, or would defend the changes. And that's the long and short answer. And frankly speaking, it sucks. But people like this, Chris, and people like Derek, is why the woke people are going to win. People who I used to respect as moderate leftists who have just sprinted as fast as they can towards the neo progressive left. And they think that just because they're not perpetually online anymore, the boogeyman's not going to get them. Well, sucks for you because the boogeyman is perpetually online and he'll eventually come for you both. And by the time that he does, you're going to wonder how and why it happened. Anyways, this is significantly shorter than my other video, and I got through most of what I wanted to get through. But people need to understand this is happening. This is not going to be a just insignificant thing that doesn't end up catching on, because it will. And if you want to know another reason why this is so stupid, why the pronouns thing is so stupid in this game, is the game frequently misgenders you, no matter which you pick. So you can tell it was an addendum added as a virtue signal, which clearly is intentionally woke crap being put into games. But you're going to be like, oh, it's insignificant. It means nothing. It takes up none of my time. Why does it matter? Because it becomes an issue when it stays in games. You don't say anything, and then it gets worse. And it will. But you'll have either stopped playing video games outright by then, or you'll be too old to care, and the medium that we love so much will be a dead corpse. Undead corpse. or it'll be a corpse using our medium as a flesh suit. I don't know, something to that extent. But people like the Act Man who think that they haven't changed, and Derek and Chris who think that they haven't changed, really, you have. You've moved further left. You just haven't been paying attention, and you think that because Az decided to call this out, that it's just, oh, well, he's just complaining that everything is woke and replacing sexist with woke. You know what the difference is? One of them was factually untrue, one of them is factually true. And we can see it clear as day in games, with games like Forspoken. Where is it a soulless corporate cash grab with mostly primarily characters who are minority characters? And again, I don't have problems with minority characters in games, but every single one of the characters is written poorly with cringy dialogue and is absolutely just awful. And that's what woke is: one dimensional minority characters that exist as a OP leadership person, and that's it. That's all they exist for, is to appear as a stereotype, but just in a position of leadership or as a main character or main, function of the story in some capacity, because more representation. If you're going to put minorities in games, write them to be good characters. Stop writing them as literal token stereotypes with no personalities. Anyways, I doubt they're going to see this video, but I hope they do, because I want them to understand they're being arrogant, they're being ignorant, and they're out of touch. Because these changes are coming, they're going to get worse, and they're going to ruin our our medium of entertainment. Anyways, this has been the Guardian Dark Angel, over and out.